Good morning. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're beginning with a major development affecting millions of Kenyans. Kenya Power has just notified customers of a planned 24-hour power outage for what it calls critical system response and inspections. This unprecedented move comes at a time when the national grid is under immense pressure, and it raises serious questions about the state of our energy infrastructure. This is more than just a story about lights going off. It's a story about power in every sense of the word: electrical, political, and social. Over the next 12 minutes, we'll dive deep into what this outage means, why it's happening now, and how it connects to broader issues facing the nation, from public health crises to international resource scrambles. We'll present multiple perspectives, analyze the data, and try to understand the full picture of power in Kenya today. Let's begin. First, the facts as we have them. Kenya Power, in a statement released late yesterday, announced a rolling 24-hour outage for system-wide inspections. The utility cited the need for emergency response protocols and comprehensive infrastructure audits, following what it described as unprecedented strain on the national grid. The outage is not nationwide all at once, but will be implemented in zones across the country over the coming week. Customers are advised to prepare for a full day without electricity. The immediate question on everyone's mind is why now? And why for a full 24 hours? Kenya Power's official line points to necessary maintenance, but critics are asking if this is a reactive measure to a system that is, in their words, on the brink of failure. To understand the potential scale of this strain, we need to look at some key metrics. According to internal industry reports we've obtained, system load has increased by a staggering 77% over the last 5 years. That's a 77% increase in demand, pushing aging infrastructure to its absolute limit. Furthermore, non-technical losses, which include everything from illegal connections to faulty metering, are estimated to account for a significant portion of distributed power. While Kenya Power officially reports these losses at around 18%, independent audits have suggested the real figure could be much higher, directly impacting the utility's financial health and its ability to invest in upgrades. This brings us to the financial dimension, a critical piece of the puzzle. Kenya Power has been grappling with severe financial challenges for years. The company is saddled with debt and has consistently posted losses. Last year, it reported a net loss of 12 billion shillings. That's a 12 billion shilling hole in its balance sheet. This financial hemorrhage limits its capacity to undertake the massive capital investments needed to modernize the grid. So, when we hear about a 24-hour outage for inspections, we must ask, is this a routine checkup or an emergency intervention on a patient that's been critically ill for some time? The government, as the majority shareholder, has repeatedly promised bailouts and restructuring. President William Ruto's administration has spoken of ambitious plans to expand generation capacity, particularly through geothermal and wind. But the transmission and distribution network, the veins and arteries that carry the power to homes and businesses, has not seen commensurate investment. This creates a dangerous bottleneck. You can generate all the power in the world, but if you can't deliver it reliably, it's useless. The planned outage, therefore, could be seen as a desperate attempt to diagnose and patch the most critical failures in this delivery system before a catastrophic collapse occurs. Now, let's shift perspective and consider the human impact. A 24-hour power outage is not merely an inconvenience. For hospitals, it's a life or death situation. Backup generators are not infallible, and fuel shortages are a real risk, as seen recently in other nations. For businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, a day without power means a day without income, potentially pushing many over the edge in this tough economic climate. For students, it means no light to study by. And in the context of a growing public health crisis, it could be devastating. As reported by Africanews, Kenya is facing a rising threat from Kala-Azar disease, a deadly illness spread by sandflies. Climate change is fueling its spread. Diagnosis and treatment require reliable electricity for medical equipment and refrigeration for medicines. A widespread, prolonged blackout in affected regions could severely hamper the response, putting vulnerable communities at even greater risk. This outage, therefore, exists at the intersection of infrastructure failure and public health vulnerability. This story also connects to a global narrative about power and resources. Our third source today from The Guardian discusses the international scramble for critical minerals, essential for everything from electric vehicle batteries to advanced electronics. The article notes the appalling human cost of this extraction, particularly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It also mentions that former US President Donald Trump recently boasted of stopping the Rwanda DRC conflict, though fighting persists. What does this have to do with Kenya's power outage? Everything. Kenya's ambition to be a tech and manufacturing hub depends on a stable, abundant, and cheap power supply. The global race for the minerals needed for the energy transition, cobalt, lithium, copper, is intensifying. If Kenya cannot secure its own energy foundation, it will be left behind in this new geopolitical game. It will remain a consumer, not a creator of the technology of the future. The reliability of our national grid is, in this light, a matter of national economic sovereignty. Let's now turn to another facet of power, state power and its application. Our first source, though incomplete, touches on a perennial issue in Kenya: police conduct and human rights. It mentions President Ruto presiding over a police pass-out parade and the ongoing struggle to instill a rights-based approach in law enforcement. The connection to our main story may seem tangential, but it's about trust in public institutions. When Kenya Power announces a 24-hour outage, the public's willingness to endure the hardship depends heavily on trust. Do they believe the utility is acting in their best interest? Or is this another failure of a state-owned enterprise? Similarly, when the police are perceived as savages rather than protectors, as the source headline provocatively states, it erodes the social contract. Both situations, a failing power utility and a police force accused of abuses, stem from a similar root: institutions that are meant to serve the public but are perceived as distant, unaccountable, and powerful in the wrong ways. The power here is the power of the state, and its legitimacy is being tested on multiple fronts simultaneously. We've heard from the utility's likely perspective and the critical public perspective. Let's introduce a third voice, that of an independent energy analyst. We spoke to Dr. Amani Okoth, who argues that the outage, while painful, is a necessary surgical procedure. The grid is a complex organism, she told us. You cannot fix a beating heart. Sometimes you have to stop it, repair the damage, and restart it. The 77% demand increase is real. The infrastructure is from a different era. A planned, coordinated outage is infinitely better than the cascading, unplanned national blackouts we've seen in other countries. The key is transparency. Kenya Power must use these 24 hours effectively and report exactly what it found and what it fixed. Dr. Okoth also pointed to the financials. The 12 billion shilling loss is unsustainable, but throwing money at the problem isn't the only answer. We need smart grid technology, better demand management, and a serious crackdown on the non-technical losses that bleed the company dry. This outage should be the wake-up call that leads to a total system overhaul, not just a temporary fix. So, where does this leave us? We have a major utility taking drastic action. We have a public facing severe disruption. We have a government balancing economic promises with harsh realities. And we have a nation whose development ambitions are tied directly to solving this problem. The statistics tell a clear story of a system under extreme pressure. The 77% demand growth shows a booming need. The 12 billion shilling loss shows a broken business model. 18% estimated technical and commercial losses, with some analysts suggesting the true figure for non-revenue power could be closer to 22% in certain regions, show a system leaking value at every turn. And looming over it all is the 96% electrification access rate that the government proudly cites. But access is not the same as reliability. You can be connected to the grid, but if the power is off for 24 hours, that connection is meaningless. This gap between access and reliability is the central challenge. As we conclude, let's consider the path forward. The 24-hour outage is a symptom, not the disease. The disease is chronic underinvestment, rapid demand growth, and operational inefficiencies. The cure will be painful and expensive. It will require not just government capital, but private sector innovation and, frankly, public patience. It will also require Kenya to navigate the treacherous waters of global resource politics, ensuring it has the materials and partnerships to build a 21st-century grid. The alternative is unthinkable: a nation perpetually in the dark, literally and metaphorically, while the rest of the world advances. The lights may go off for a day, but the conversation about Kenya's power, in all its forms, must stay on. This is not just about Kenya Power. It's about the power of Kenya to determine its own future. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for continuing coverage of this developing story and all the news that matters to you.